All praise to the Most High. But as I was saying, the past couple weeks, we went into the Assyrian Empire, the Babylonian Empire. Last week, we sort of transitioned into showing how it was prophesied by the prophet Isaiah to Hezekiah that his children would go into Babylon. All right, that his descendants would become eunuchs in Babylon, like Daniel and the three holy children. But since we're going into the history of Daniel, you have to start with Susanna in the Apocrypha. All right, and we'll read this real quick. It says, there dwelt a man in Babylon named Joachim, and he took a wife whose name was Susanna, the daughter of Chelcias, a very fair woman and one that feared the Lord. Her parents also were righteous and taught their daughter according to the law of Moses. Now Joachim was a great rich man and had a fair garden joining unto his house, and to him resorted the Jews, because he was more honorable than all others. The same year were appointed two of the ancients of the people to be judges, such as the Lord spake of, that wickedness came from Babylon from ancient judges who seemed to govern the people. Right, so it starts off talking about Joachim and how his house was so nice that that's where all the leaders of the people like to hang out. Right, the garden was so great, and plus Joachim himself was a righteous man. But you have these two old wicked men, all right, who are judges of the people. These kept much at Joachim's house, and all that had any suits in law came unto them. Right, so anybody who had any questions about the law, any strivings about doctrine, they went to these two elders. Now, when the people departed away at noon, Susanna went into her husband's garden to walk. And the two elders saw her going in every day and walking, so that their lust was inflamed toward her. And they perverted their own mind and turned away their eyes, that they might not look into heaven, nor remember just judgments. And albeit they both were wounded with her love, yet durst not one show another his grief. Right? So they hid this within themselves, their lust towards Susanna. Right? For they were ashamed to declare their lust that they desired to have to do with her. Yeah. Yet they watched diligently from day to day to see her, real creepy peeping Tom types. And the one said to the other, let us now go home, for it is dinner time. So when they were gone out, they parted the one from the other, and turning back again, they came to the same place. And after that they had asked one another the cause, they acknowledged their lust. Then appointed they a time both together, when they might find her alone. Right? So each one told the other one, hey, I'm going home. So then they pretend to go home, they sneak back around, and then they run into each other again. Hey, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? Right? And so they had to confess to each other, oh, I'm here to be a creep, be a peeper on Susanna. All right. They appointed time together when they might find her alone. Right? They decided they were going to tag team her. Right? And it fell out as they watched a fit time. She went in as before with two maids only, and she was desirous to wash herself in the garden, for it was hot. Right? So bathing back then, they didn't have showers. They could have had tubs inside and things like that, but they also had tubs outside. Because no AC, right? No weather control. So you might as well go outside if it's a hot day, right? But she's in the garden. She thinks she's in the safety of her own home, right? And there was nobody there save the two elders that had hid themselves and watched her. Then she said to her maids, bring me oil and washing balls, and shut the garden doors, that I may wash me. And they did as she bade them, and shut the garden doors, and went out themselves at privy doors to fetch the things that she had commanded them. But they saw not the elders, because they were hid, right? So this is like level 9,000 of creeper mode, right? Sneaking into the person who you're stalking's house and like hiding behind things, right? Now when the maids were gone forth, the two elders rose up and ran unto her, saying, behold, the garden doors are shut, that no man can see us, and we are in love with thee. Therefore consent unto us and lie with us. Like, take on both of us right now. And this is a righteous woman. She ain't never done anything like that. If thou wilt not, we will bear witness against thee that a young man was with thee, and therefore thou didst send away thy maids from thee. Then Susanna sighed and said, I am straitened on every side, for if I do this thing, it is death unto me, and if I do it not, I cannot escape your hands. It is better for me to fall into your hands and not do it than to sin in the sight of the Lord. Right? So she was a follower of God. She said, I don't care what y'all do to me. I ain't sinning against God in this way. I'm a married woman. Why would I be doing this foolishness? Right? This fornication. With that, Susanna cried with a loud voice, and the two elders cried out against her. Then ran the one and opened the garden door. So when the servants of the house heard the cry in the garden, they rushed in at the privy door to see what was done unto her. But when the elders had declared their matter, the servants were greatly ashamed, for there was never such a report made of Susanna. Right? So they started accusing her like, oh, as soon as she sent her servants away, here come this young man and to commit adultery with her. And obviously her servants are like, well, this is odd. This is not like Susanna, right? And it came to pass the next day, when the people were assembled to her husband Joachim, the two elders came also full of mischievous imagination against Susanna to put her to death, and said before the people, send for Susanna, the daughter of Chelcias, Joachim's wife. And so they sent. So she came with her father and mother, her children, and all her kindred. Right, so her whole family's there. Right? Now Susanna was a very delicate woman and beauteous to behold. Right? Very beautiful woman. And these wicked men commanded to uncover her face, for she was covered, that they might be filled with her beauty. Therefore her friends and all that saw her wept. And the two elders stood up in the midst of the people and laid their hands upon her head. And she, weeping, looked up toward heaven, for her heart trusted in the Lord. And the elders said, as we walked in the garden alone, this woman came in with two maids, shut the garden doors, and sent the maids away. Then a young man, who there was hid, came unto her, and lay with her. Then we that stood in a corner of the garden, seeing this wickedness, ran unto them. Right? So nobody questions, we didn't see you in the garden. We didn't know you were in the garden. What were you doing in the garden? Right? Nobody questions them because they're in the position of power here. All right? It says, and when we saw them together, the man we could not hold, for he was stronger than we, and opened the door and leapt out. But having taken this woman, we asked who the young man was, but she would not tell us. These things do we testify, right? Lying to the teeth. Then the assembly believed them as those that were the elders and judges of the people. So they condemned her to death, right? So all the people believed the elders because the elders are supposed to be telling the truth. They're supposed to be the ones who guide the people in righteousness. But sometimes you have cases where the elders of the people are in a massive amount of wickedness, all right? You cannot let elders like this go unchecked, or else they will continue in wickedness forever, all right? Then Susanna cried out with a loud voice and said, O everlasting God, that knowest the secrets, and knowest all things before they be, thou knowest that they have borne false witness against me, and behold, I must die. Whereas I never did such thing as these men have maliciously invented against me. And the Lord heard her voice, right, because she was righteous. She said, I would rather fall into your hands than the hands of God in sinning against him, right? Therefore, when she was led to be put to death, the Lord raised up the Holy Spirit of a young youth whose name was Daniel, right? So young youth implies that he is not even like 20 years old yet, right? So he's probably a teenager here, who cried with a loud voice, I am clear from the blood of this woman. Right, so everybody else is like, yeah, put her to death. She's wicked. She's an adulteress. And Daniel's like, just yells out, going against the grain, saying, I'm clear of the blood of this woman. Then all the people turned them toward him and said, what mean these words that thou hast spoken? So he, standing in the midst of them, said, are ye such fools, ye sons of Israel, that without examination or knowledge of the truth ye have condemned the daughter of Israel? Return again to the place of judgment, for they have borne false witness against him. Wherefore all the people turned again in haste, and the elders said unto him, come sit down among us, and show it us, seeing God hath given thee the honor of an elder. Right, so this is the elders speaking to Daniel. So they're saying this in sort of like a sarcastic way. Oh, why don't you come show it to us since you are a teenager and you know what these elders don't know, right? Oh, since you know better than us, come show us the way, right? Then said Daniel unto them, put these two aside, one far from another, and I will examine them. So when they were put asunder one from another, he called one of them and said unto him, O thou that art waxen old in wickedness, now thy sins which thou hast committed aforetime are come to light. For thou hast pronounced false judgment, and hast condemned the innocent, and hast let the guilty go free. Albeit the Lord saith, the innocent and the righteous shalt thou not slay. Right? So he's saying, you're going all the way off. You're going completely against what the word of God say. All right. Now then, If thou hast seen her, tell me, under what tree sawest thou them companying together? Who answered, under a mastic tree, right? So you had one elder over here on this side of the room, or in this room over here, and he said mastic tree. So now we got to go talk to the other guy, all right? And Daniel said, very well, thou hast lied against thine own head. For even now the angel of God hath received the sentence of God to cut thee in two. Because Daniel, he's a prophet of the Lord. He already knows. He's just doing this so the people can see that this is how you inquisite of any false accusation. This is how you are supposed to look into it every time. All right. Don't just take anybody's word for it. Look at the evidence. All right. So he put him aside and commanded to bring the other, and said unto him, O thou seed of Canaan, and not of Judah, beauty had deceived thee, and lust had perverted thy heart. So he told this man, he said, look, you ain't even a Jew. You like a Canaanite. That's what you're like. You're like one of the heathen. That's what he's saying right here. Thus have ye dealt with the daughters of Israel, and they for fear accompanied with you. But the daughter of Judah would not abide your wickedness. You see that right there. So he said the northern kingdom, they was putting up with this. They would give in to these suggestions that y'all would give them. But the daughters of Judah, they more righteous than that. They ain't putting up with the BS. All right. Now therefore tell me, under what tree didst thou take them companying together? That's a hard word for me to say. Who answered, under a home tree. So you see already their story. All Daniel had to ask is any specific detail. Already. Two different stories. Then said Daniel unto him, well, thou hast also lied against thine own head. For the angel of God waiteth with the sword to cut thee in two, that he may destroy you. With that, all the assembly cried out with a loud voice, and praised God, who saveth them that trust in him. And they arose against the two elders, for Daniel had convicted them of false witness by their own mouth. And according to the law of Moses, they did unto them in such sort as they maliciously intended to do to their neighbor. And they put them to death. Thus the innocent blood was saved the selfsame day. Right? So coming with them false accusations, according to the law of Moses, you're supposed to get the same punishment that you were trying to inflict on another person, right? So that's what they got. They got death because they were trying to put Susanna to death for her righteousness. So now they got put to death for their wickedness, all right? Therefore Chelcias and his wife praised God for their daughter Susanna, with Joachim her husband, and all the kindred, because there was no dishonesty found in her. From that day forth was Daniel having great reputation in the sight of the people. So I wanted to start there because this is when Daniel was like a teenager, right? And this is when he first started getting the reputation of a prophet amongst the people. So now when you go to Daniel 1, it says, in the third year of the reign of Joachim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem, and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, with part of the vessels of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar, to the house of his God. And he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. And we mentioned this briefly when speaking on Babylon, about how they just took all the gold. They didn't smelt it all down. They just took the vessels and took it to their temples, right? Or to their temple. I didn't mean to skip. Let's keep reading. And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes. Children in whom was no blemish, but well favored, and skillful in all wisdom, and cunning in knowledge, and understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. Right? So this is what Nebuchadnezzar wanted. He said, take all those Jews who were really smart, who were really educated, who were of the king's seed, who I have made eunuchs, right? Eunuch means to cut off the private parts. That's what a eunuch is. A eunuch is cutting off the private parts of a male. That's what a eunuch is. All right. So he said, take all these men who are educated and bring them here so that we can teach them the Babylonian language, so that we can use them in council. All right. And the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat and of the wine which he drank, so nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might stand before the king. Right, so he had to basically raise them up in Babylonian customs and traditions. Right. Now, among these were of the children of Judah Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So that's Daniel and the three holy children. All right. Unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave names, for he gave unto Daniel the name Belteshazzar, and to Hananiah Shadrach, and to Mishael of Meshach, and to Azariah of Abednego. Right, so that's where you get the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Those are the Babylonian names for Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael. All right. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Right. So Daniel is still operating in the mindset of, oh, this is sacrificed unto idols. I'm not going to eat it. I'm not going to drink it. Y'all sacrificed it unto Marduk and Shamash and whatever Babylonian gods that y'all have. Right. He said, I'm not eating it. Now God had brought Daniel into favor and tender love with the prince of the eunuchs, right, through his wisdom, through his counsel. And the prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who hath appointed your meat and your drink. For why should he see your faces worse liking than the children which are of your sort, meaning the other Jews? Then shall ye make me endanger my head to the king. Right? So if Daniel was walking around looking gaunt, whereas the rest of the Jews look like they're fed, that would make who is this? Ashpenaz. This would make Ashpenaz look bad, right? Nebuchadnezzar would be like, why aren't you feeding Daniel? Verse 11. Then said Daniel to Melzar, whom the prince of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink. Pulse being like vegetables and being like plants instead of animals, right? Then let our countenances be looked upon before thee, and the countenance of the children that eat of the portion of the king's meat, and as thou seest, deal with thy servants. So he consented to them in this matter, and proved them 10 days. And at the end of 10 days, their countenance appeared fairer and fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat the portion of the king's meat, right? So you can have a vegetarian diet and still be healthy, right? The problem comes in where you don't know exactly everything that you need, right? Like you may start to neglect protein, whereas you can still have like beans and nuts, and that'll give you your protein, right? So and you can get iron from greens and things like that. So everything that you get from meat, you can get it from plants, and that's what Daniel is trying to explain here. He's like, look, we can be vegetarians and still be very healthy, and that's what they showed him, that they were still very healthy even though they were not eating meat. All right. Thus Melzar took away the portion of their meat and the wine that they should drink, and gave them pulse, right, vegetables, plants. As for these 4 children, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. And Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. You see that right there. So they all had understanding in knowledge, learning, and wisdom, but Daniel was good at interpreting dreams as well. All right. The Lord was dealing with him in that manner as well. Now, at the end of the days that the king had said he should bring them in, then the prince of the eunuchs brought them in. Then the prince of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar, and the king communed with them. And among them all was found none like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore stood they before the king. Right, they're being placed in a prominent position in his government, in his council, because of how wise they have proven themselves to be. All right. And in all matters of wisdom and understanding that the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers that were in all his realm, right? Because they had the Bible, they had the Lord, they had, education prior in Jerusalem. All right, so naturally, the other nations, especially like the Babylonians, magicians, and astrologers, they could not compare. All right, they didn't have nothing like the Lord our God. And Daniel continued even into the first year of King Cyrus, and eventually we'll get that. We're not going to get in. I can already tell just by the time we're not going to be able to get into all of the history of Daniel, and we're not even going to, even in totality, we're not going to read all the prophecies that's in Daniel because there's a lot going on there. But we'll just read chapter 2, and we'll wrap it up with chapter 2, and then next week we'll come back and finish out the history of Daniel. But keep that in the back of your mind, that he continued until the first year of King Cyrus, and that'll be like the last thing that we touch on concerning Daniel's history. Daniel 2, starting in verse 1. And in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, wherewith his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. Then the king commanded to call the magicians, and the astrologers, and the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans, for to show the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Right? Because, sometimes you dream a dream, and it was very impactful, but as you get up and start moving throughout your day, you forget it. Right? So Nebuchadnezzar is calling his magicians and astrologers in there to him, like, tell me what my dream was, and also tell me what it meant. All right? Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, O king, live forever. Tell thy servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. The king answered to the Chaldeans, the thing is gone from me. If you will not make known unto me the dream, with the interpretation thereof, ye shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill. Right? So he ain't playing around. So his magicians and astrologers are like, okay, tell us what you dreamed, and we'll tell you what it meant. And he's like, didn't I tell you I forgot? I don't know what the dream is. If you're a magician, you're supposed to tell me, right? You got magic, all that kind of stuff. Tell me what the dream was. If you don't, I'm going to kill all of you, destroy all your houses. It says, but if you show the dream and the interpretation thereof, you shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore, show me the dream and the interpretation thereof. They answered again and said, let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation of it. The king answered and said, I know of certainty that you would gain the time because you see the thing is gone from me. He's like, you're stalling. You know that I don't remember it. So how can I tell it to you? I don't remember what it was. But I remember I had the dream. So use your magic to tell me what the dream was. All right. But if you will not make known unto me the dream, there is but one decree for you. For ye have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak before me till the time be changed. Therefore tell me the dream, and I shall know that ye can show me the interpretation thereof. Right? So he said, look, you're stalling. I know you're just stalling for time so that you can, keep living. But show me the dream, and I'll be able to, and that will declare to me whether or not you can actually interpret it. If you can show it to me, you can interpret it. All right. Verse 10. The Chaldeans answered before the king and said, there is not a man upon the earth that can show the king's matter. Therefore, there is no king, lord, nor ruler that asks such things at any magician or astrologer or Chaldean. They're like, look, how can we tell you the interpretation of the dream if you don't even remember what it was? How can we tell you your dream? Ain't nobody that can do this. Ain't nobody's ever asked anybody to do this before. This is a new one, Nebuchadnezzar. And it is a rare thing that the king requireth, and there is none other that can show up before the king except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh. Right? So, they believe in the multiple gods. They believe in the polytheistic pantheon and all that kind of crap. So they're like, look, maybe the gods can show you, but men can't show you. There ain't no man that can show you this thing. For this cause the king was angry and very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. And the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain, and they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain. Right? So he said, all my counselors, killing all of them. Then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which was going forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. Right, so dude's on his way out the door, and Daniel's like, what's going on here? He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, why is the decree so hasty from the king? Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. Then Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him time and that he would show the king the interpretation. So Daniel, with the faith that he has in God, he said, "Look, God knows what it is, and if you give me some time, God will reveal that thing to me." Then Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they would desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning this secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. So, notice that he didn't put it all on himself. He brought it to his brothers and said, "Look, y'all pray to God with me that he spare us in this thing, that he reveal this thing to us so that he can spare us, so that we don't have to die alongside the Chaldeans." All right. Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. So Nebuchadnezzar had a dream one night, and then this thing was revealed that Nebuchadnezzar forgot the dream, and we got to seek out what the dream is, and it's on Daniel's mind. He's praying to the Lord that the Lord be merciful, and so he has the dream the next night, right? This then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in the night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changeth the times and the seasons. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. He revealeth the deep and secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. I thank thee and praise thee, O thou God of my fathers, who hast given me wisdom and might, and hast made known unto me now what we desired of thee. For thou hast now made known unto us the king's matters." So all praise to the Most High. He is giving praise to the Most High. It says, "Therefore Daniel went in unto Arioch, whom the king had ordained to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus unto him, Destroy not the wise men of Babylon. Bring me in before the king, and I will show unto the king the interpretation." Then Arioch brought in Daniel before the king in haste, and said thus unto him, "I have found a man of the captives of Judah that will make known unto the king the interpretation." The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, "Art thou able to make known unto me the dream which I have seen and the interpretation thereof?" Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, "The secret which the king hath demanded cannot the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, the soothsayers show unto the king. But there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets and maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. Thy dream and the visions of thy head upon thy bed are these." Right? So Daniel's about to get into the dream itself. All right. "As for thee, O king, thy thoughts came into thy mind upon thy bed, what should come to pass hereafter? And he that revealeth secrets maketh known to thee what shall come to pass. But as for me, this secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living, but for their sakes that shall make known the interpretation to the king, and that thou mightest know the thoughts of thy heart." Right? So Daniel is staying humble here. He's not saying like, "Oh yeah, it's me. I'm the man. I'm the one that can show it to you." Daniel's like, "Look, I'm no better than anybody else. I'm just being used as a messenger from God to show you what this dream means." All right. He said, "Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. This image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay." All right, so I think I actually have the image on here somewhere. Let me see. Let me see of the Daniel 2 image. The pictures, photos. Let's see if I got this. Surely, right? I know I've used it before. Let's see. So I got Daniel 2. That's Daniel imagery. Daniel imagery is good. Let's see. Yeah, but I kind of want it on its own. I thought I had it. Here we go. This is it right here. You see the head of gold. I like this one because it doesn't try to give you its own interpretation. We're about to break down what it means. But you see here, you got the head of gold, the shoulders and arms of silver, the belly and thighs of brass, legs of iron, and then feet of iron and of clay. All right. So we'll keep that around. But um, here we go. Verse 34. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and of clay, and brake them to pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth. All right. So that's heavy right there. And as you can see right here, the stone, it is Christ. All right, but we'll get into that when we get into it. Just got rid of it. But anyway, that's fine. This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art a king of kings, for the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And if you remember from last week, Nebuchadnezzar was really the only king of Babylon to do as much as he did, to conquer as much as he conquered, that took as much as he took. All the rest of the kings of Babylon were either making lateral moves or too busy fighting off the Assyrians and things like that to actually get anything done. All right. Verse 38. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven, hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold. So the head of gold is Babylon. All right. And verse 39. And after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. Right. So the second kingdom that came after the Babylonians were the Medo-Persians. All right, the Medo-Persian Empire. They joined forces and created a joint empire with some Persian kings, some Median kings. All right, some Elamite, some Japhethite. All right. And then the kingdom of brass, which bear rule over all the earth, that is the kingdom of the Greeks. All right. And it says, and the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron. This is Rome. This is Rome. For as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. Right. The major thing about the Roman Empire was their military. This is this iron, all right, strong as iron. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. All right, so this extension of Rome, the feet are America. All right. Same way it's got 2 feet, there are 2 political parties that run America. But also it's the 2 forms of speech against each other, right? Or the 2 contradictory elements of America, right? One saying we love peace, we love freedom, we love democracy, but the other side saying we want war, we want money, we want your resources, right? So it's the dichotomy. It's partly divided. All right. But mixed with the miry clay. Verse 42. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. Why is it partly broken? And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. So America has invited all nations of men here to America. But we're not completely together, are we? There's still racial divisions. There's still racial tension, right? And when the Chinese move over here, they don't integrate. They have Chinatown, right? When Italians move over here, they don't integrate fully. It's little Italy, right? Same thing with like Koreatown. Same thing with like the Arabs that come here. They basically just stay in their gas stations and around their gas stations, right? So you see all people here, but all people are not really together here. All right. They shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. So the same way you can't mix iron with clay is the same way that all people will never fully be together here in America. That's not how things are supposed to work. Just like in the Tower of Babel, God created the people to be in their own lands, but to serve Him, right? Let's keep reading. And in the days of these kings, of these different kingdoms, from Babylon to America, shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, right? So during the days of Babylon, you had like Jeremiah and Ezekiel and Daniel prophesying to the people, trying to get them to repent, right? Amongst many other prophets. The same thing with the Persians. And in the time of the Greeks, you had the Maccabean family, right? And then the time of Rome, you had Jesus Christ and his disciples, right? And in America, you have the prophets raising up again, saying, look, keep these commandments, have faith in Christ, endure to the end to be saved. All right. It said, and in these days, in the days of these kings, shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people. You see that right there? So it's going to be to the Israelites. The kingdom of heaven is for the Israelites. The kingdom of God is to the Israelites. As you read in Revelation 21 about the 12 gates, the 12 pearly gates. It's not one set of pearly gates, it's 12, each for the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. Same thing as you read in Revelation 7. God is not bringing forth his kingdom without calling his 12 tribes back to him. All right, it starts with Judah and it goes all the way down. All right. Shall not be left to the other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. All right. For as much as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it brake in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God hath made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter, and the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure. Right? So Daniel said, look, this is how it's going to happen. This is what is going to come to pass. The Lord has revealed a great thing to you, Nebuchadnezzar. All right. But when it says the stone that was cut without hands, all right, let me get this real quick in Exodus. Now, it's not exactly the same thing, but it was brought to my attention, just the way that it was worded like that. All right. So when you get down to an altar, right? This is Exodus 20, and toward the end of it, Exodus 20, starting with verse 24, it says, an altar of earth thou shalt make unto me, and shalt sacrifice thereon thy burnt offerings, and thy peace offerings, thy sheep, and thine oxen, in all places where I record my name, I will come unto thee, and I will bless thee. And if thou wilt make me an altar of stone, so now we're talking about the stone, thou shalt not build it of hewn stone, for if thou lift up thy tool upon it, thou hast polluted it. So without hands, without molding the stone in any kind of way. Neither shalt thou go up by steps unto mine altar, that thy nakedness be not discovered thereon. Right. So what I wanted was verse 25. You can't, when building an altar unto the Lord, you can't chop it up. Right. It's without hands. It has to be made without hands. All right. So this is the altar of the Lord, this kingdom that's being established, right? And the mountain that all the nations flow to. That's like Isaiah 2. And there's other chapters like Jeremiah, I believe Jeremiah 30, if I'm not mistaken. Micah 4, if I'm not mistaken. I'll talk about the same thing. Verse 46. Then the king Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and worshipped Daniel, and commanded that they should offer an oblation of sweet odors unto him. The king answered unto Daniel and said, Of a truth it is that your God is a God of gods, and a Lord of kings, and a revealer of secrets, seeing thou couldst reveal this secret. Then the king made Daniel a great man, and gave him many great gifts, and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon, and chief of the governors over all the wise men of Babylon. Then Daniel requested of the king, and he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon. But Daniel sat in the gate of the king. Right? So this elevated Daniel to a higher position within the government of Babylon. But Nebuchadnezzar, well, I should say that the Lord was really dealing with Nebuchadnezzar in the way that Nebuchadnezzar took these four holy men of Judah and made them his counselors.